In this talk, I want to turn to the question of marriage and marriage choice and the rules that constrain marriage. But the most difficult problem of all is, what is marriage? If you go into a registry office, such as the one in Cambridge, you'll see written on the wall for the prospective partners the following definition. Marriage, according to the law of the country, is the union of one man with one woman, voluntarily entered into for life, to the exclusion of all others. Now that definition is more or less the same one as the one given in the Notes and Queries to Anthropologists, except they've left out according to the law of the country in an attempt to make it a universal definition of marriage. Unfortunately, as with many words taken from Western contexts, the definition doesn't work at all well when you look at other societies. For instance, what about between a man and a woman? If you take the case we looked at of the newer marriages, you find marriage between a woman and a woman. And of course nowadays some societies in the West allow marriages between homosexual consenting males, man-to-man marriages. Or the newer case of the ghost marriage. It doesn't need to be someone who is alive in order to have a proper marriage. You can even have instances where you don't marry the whole person of another individual. In some societies, you can have a man marrying a part, or a woman marrying a part. For example, marrying the ear of another individual. There is a proper marriage ceremony, but by that means you can succeed to their office or inherit their property. There are other objections to the universal definition of marriage. One is the question of the nuclear family. We tend to think of a marriage setting up a group of people who live together and who act as a married couple. But we've already seen in the case of the Nayars and in the matrilineal puzzle that in fact you may have a situation where marriage leads to no home being set up by husband and wife. Or again, you have the consensual or common law marriages which now occur in many parts of the world, particularly in the Caribbean and nowadays in Western industrial societies, in which you have fluctuating unions, no marriage perhaps, but people living together who are taken to be husband and wife. And in such situations, do you talk about them as marriages or not as marriages? In their attempt to widen the definition, anthropologists have given longer and longer definitions. For example, one is marriage is a relationship established between a woman and one or more other persons, which deals with polygyny, which provides that a child born to the woman under circumstances not prohibited by the rules of the relationship is accorded full birth status rights common to normal members of his society or social structure. It's very cumbersome, and anyway you can find that there are exceptions even to that wider definition. Another approach is to break down marriage and to see what are the constituent features. What are, in the words of Edmund Leach, who has borrowed the metaphor from the great historical lawyer Sir Henry Maine, what are the bundle of rights which go together in a marriage? One way of looking at this is to look at the two different kinds of rights that occur. And the two major types of right that have been outlined are possessive rights. That's rights in rem, as the lawyers call it, rights in a thing. And on the other hand, personal rights, rights in personam. Now the rights in a thing is a right which is in relation to a certain person, but against the whole world. In other words, you have a right, I have a right in this object, which are my rights against the world using, taking away, destroying that object. If it's infringed, my right in that object, then I can claim recompense. If someone steals it or destroys it or damages it, thus, among the newer, adultery is treated as a theft. And if someone steals your rights in the thing, which is the woman you've married, then you have compensation in the form of a fine. And it gives you rights in the person as a reproducing agent, rights in genetricem, as it's called, in the generating powers of a woman, in her childbearing potential. Again, in the newer, it is the fertility of the womb which a lineage receives by payments of the bride wealth. Those are things which you get, and they are your rights in a thing. These rights need to be distinguished from the personal rights which you have in each other and which we have when we marry. For example, in relations between the husband and wife, each partner has personal rights imposing duties upon the other, such as sexual access, a right to sexual access, a right to food providing, a right to clothing and shelter. These are rights in a person as a partner. Now, the curious thing to us is that in many societies, these bundle of different rights. In our society, a husband has them in the wife and in the husband, and they are all just part of one bundle. In many societies where marriage is much more important, different people have different parts of this bundle allocated to them. It's not all in one person. For example, among the Dahomey, described by Laura Bohannon, rights in the woman as a breeder, rights in genitrician, were attained by the group into which the woman had been born, which is a patrilineal society. Her patrilineage continues to have rights in her as a breeder of children, while her rights as a marriage partner, sexual rights, rights to her labor and so on, goes to her husband. Among the Yoruba patrilineal society of Nigeria, the sexual, procreative, and some of the domestic rights go to the husband and his group, his patrilineal group. The economic power of the bride, that's her ability to make money, stays her own. She has those rights in herself, whereas her domestic services in certain circumstances, when they're required, remain with the group in which she was born. Because there is always this ambivalence. A woman is part, since descent flows through males or females, but women remain part of the patrilineal or matrilineal group in which they were born. And so that group often retains some rights in her even after she's married. Edmund Leach has in fact suggested that the major types of right which are transmitted and are encompassed in marriage are the following: to establish the legal father or mother of the children, and all these are reciprocal rights; to give monopoly of sexual rights of a partner; to give partial or monopolistic rights in the domestic and labor services of the partner; to give rights in the property belonging to the spouse; and to establish a joint fund of property. And finally, a rather curious one, to establish a socially significant relationship of affinity between a husband and his wife's brother, a social relationship between the two groups. And as Leach puts it, in no single society can marriages serve to establish all these types of rights simultaneously. The institutions commonly described as marriage do not all have the same legal and social concomitants. In other words, marriage is one of these words which you have to define in each social context because it means something slightly different.